In this tutorial, you're going to see how I turned this hot cross bun into a bunny by bouncing it. So to start with, I'm in Dragon Frame. I'm putting some guidelines there to make sure that when I bounce this hot cross bun up, it stays in the same path of travel. I don't want this to be swinging about from side to side. I want to keep it as in a straight line as I can. So this is going straight upwards, and then at the highest point it will become a bunny. Now, to do this bounce, these hot cross buns are sculpted out of plasticine. When you bounce a ball and you want a bit of squash and stretch, you have a few different shapes. You have your regular ordinary shape, you have some squashed shapes and some stretched shapes. So for this bounce, I had to sculpt 5 different hot cross buns, all of slightly different dimensions. I had my normal round one, and then I did 2 that were a bit more squashed, so one that's slightly flat and one that's really flat, and then 2 that were slightly stretched, one that was slightly stretched and one that was significantly stretched. And by switching these out to create a bounce, you get that squash and stretch. It gives a bit more kind of cartoon element to your bounce, and I quite like it. I have used this technique before. I worked on a project once where I had to sculpt little bombs that were all of different proportions, and I've also done a bounce on this channel of a pumpkin. I used exactly the same technique. I sculpted pumpkins in all sorts of different dimensions. With bouncers, there's a lot of freedom, and I suggest if you want to do a ball bounce yourself, whatever you want to make bounce, just play around, because where you position the different balls, or in this case hot cross buns, will give you a different kind of bounce. Depending how heavy you want the object to be or how light you want it to be, it will all be affected in the way that you place your replacements. I wanted this hot cross bun to have a bit of weight, a bit more weight than you'd expect a hot cross bun to have. It hits the ground quite hard and then it boings back up and becomes a bunny. That's what I was going for. The nice thing about animation is things don't have to be literal. I could have made this a realistic hot cross bun, in which case it would have been a much more lighter thud, but I really wanted to exaggerate it hitting the ground. And for this I used a tennis ball bouncing on the kitchen floor to create a sound effect, and then the sound effects for the bunnies in the air was just me going wee, and then I just sped it up a little bit. So all the sound effects in this one are created by me, and I find sometimes it's nice to have a few extra frames at the highest point of the bounce, just to, you know, slow it down before it comes back down to earth. And when it is coming back down to earth, that is when you see the most stretched shape, because it's accentuating the fact that gravity is acting upon this object. And when the ball goes up, you will usually use the slightly less stretched shape that you've made. So this just shows that, you know, there's momentum going up, but it's not quite as much as the gravity that acts upon the object coming back down. And obviously when it hits the ground, it splays out. So you're using your squashed versions there to show the impact. It's displacing the object outwards, and then it pings back up to its normal shape. Like I say, my advice for doing bounces is to just play around, have fun. It's not going to be perfect the first time you do it. The best way to practice is probably using the same technique I'm doing. So this was flat down on a table, and I placed the objects on their side, and I used a camera from above, because if you're using wire and you're actually rigging things, then it can sometimes be hard to hold up your objects, especially if you haven't got a proper rigging system, and then you've obviously got to paint out all the wires as well. So if you're just trying to learn, trying to get the spacings right, do it flat down on a table, and it will be a lot easier for you to play around more and have more attempts, and hopefully find something that works for you, and yeah, just have fun with it. If you want to see more behind the scenes, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And I've actually just made a new YouTube channel. It's also stop motion related, so keep your ears open about that. If you want to hear about things like that, make sure to sign up to the mailing list, because everything that I'm doing will be sent out once a month to people that sign up for that. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you again in the next tutorial.